just like looking at it.
And also, I think, you know, there's a lot of misinformation what it's like to work on a big set and a big set with Michael. And so, you know, we try our best to explain what the process is, and don't listen to all the noise. You're going to have fun.
Yeah.
And you're going to work hard.
Yeah, looking back, it was a lot of fun, and now I'm a little bored. So I drive really fast in my car. It's not mine, I'm lying. It's my mom's niece, but you know.
You paint the Autobot logo on the car?
Yes.
Yeah, right.
You know,
it's there.
The heart.
Well, I mean, we'll talk a little bit about actually getting cast for the role. Any interesting stories or the process entering this world?
It was really last minute. I remember getting an email from my manager, and she said there's a role for it's you know, they're casting much older, but I think you should really go out for it. And I was really nervous. I didn't think I was going to get it. And you know, my mom really, you know, she said, I really believe in you, and I really gotta give credit to her, because I don't think I would have been able to do it without her. And but yeah, soon I read the sides. I didn't have a script because that was all hush. But I read the sides, and I immediately just, I fell in love with Izzy, and how powerful she is, but how little. And I thought me being so tiny and portraying such a strong character would be inspiring to kids all over the world. So I really wanted to do my best. And so I put up the email said you needed a white background, so I put up a blanket, a bed sheet, and it was wrinkly, so I had to iron it. And I put it up, I taped it to the wall, and then I read the sides. I put a bandana around my arm because I figured Izzy would be sweating and need to wipe off the sweat. She's working so hard. And then I sent it in, and then 2 days later, Michael Bay was like, all right, come to LA. You're going to read for me in my offices. And as soon as I got there, he had a hair and makeup team and his little camera ready, and I did my audition. It was amazing.
Yeah.
The part that she's missing is she killed the self-tape. I mean, it was incredible, and we were very close to casting somebody else at that moment in time. And suddenly this tape comes in out of nowhere from our perspective, and just bowled us over. And we had spent we probably met 50, 100 different actresses for that role, and it so shone out on that tape that I think it was really a formality when it came out.
Yeah. You know, I also think is amazing is, you know, you don't give yourself quite enough credit. I went out to, you remember the scenes in the junkyard, right, in the Last Night movie, and how hot it was?
Oh, yeah.
It was like 110, 120 degrees, and okay, Michael, take number 322, and you kept killing it and doing it, and you were with the Dinobots, or pretending to be with the Dinobots, depending on what the scene was. And I thought it was just amazing that you just continued to deliver and were there with such a great attitude, and it was hot as heck, and it was just amazing to see how you guys just keep pulling it off. And I think that's really one of the hallmarks of the great actors in our Transformers movies, and Anthony Hopkins and Isabela, and you know, you could see it across the board how hard everybody works, but you see the outcome, and it's just really so heartening to watch. And to see it all come to life.
Yeah. You definitely are imagining a lot, but when it's that hot, like on the set, you already naturally start imagining things and like seeing things, so it's not that hard.
Well, I just have to say I appreciate the detail of ironing the bed sheet for your audition tape. Like there you go, aspiring actors out there. There's a free piece of advice: iron your bed sheet. In the months since the movie's come out, and even since the trailer came out, do you feel like there is sort of a reception from not just like young women and girls, but all kids? Do you feel like they're connecting with this character and responding to her?
Oh yeah, well, okay, so I remember I went to go see Beauty and the Beast, and one of the trailers came on, and I don't know if you saw it. It was me talking to the camera, and I was talking about how, you know, kids would make fun of me because you know, they were saying I threw like a girl, and I heard a girl, didn't know her, but in the theater she was like, yes, kill it, or like, I don't know, she was like, slay, or something like that, and she was super inspired. She had to yell, so that was pretty cool. And then I just met Liv over there, and she said, or her mom said that she wasn't really that interested in the previous movies, but as soon as she saw that another a young girl like herself was in the movies, she was like, all right, let's go see it.
Yeah.
And meeting her, she's just so sweet, she's so cute.
Well, I was walking around a little bit earlier, and I heard a younger fan ask like a sibling or best friend or whatever about which Transformer they would be if they could be any Transformer. And I look, that's the kind of question that I would ask. And I'm curious, I'm going to put you on the spot about which Transformer each of you guys would like to be.
Well, you know, that's easy for me. In fact, it's my icon, and most of my social media is Optimus Prime.
Yeah, you're going big.
Yeah, I gotta go big. Well, you know, he's the king of the jungle, and he's such a great father figure, and I love you'll hear from Peter, who's done the voice forever, and we love Peter, and he's been part of our family as well for more than 30 years, and he's really just done such a great job. And Frank Welker, who does Megatron,
right.
But you know, he's been so great, so that's for me.
How typical, Brian. It's hard not to pick Optimus or Bumblebee.
Well, yeah.
But I'm going to pick Ironhide because it's my son's favorite character, and he has beaten me up for years now since we killed him in the first movie. So for my son Dante, Ironhide.
Yeah, there you go.
I've just been thinking about this whole time, I don't know. I gotta give love to my little pathetic Transformer, Squeaks.
Oh, God, Squeaks. Yeah,
he's so sad, but I love him.
Hey, it's a respectable response. What about, like, you know, some of the surprising stories that happen on set? Were there any interesting behind-the-scenes anecdotes? Because obviously we have, you know, people are going to be able to have this on DVD, Blu-ray, 4K. And these behind-the-scenes featurettes are meant to capture sort of the spirit of the set. But anything that you guys kind of experience where you just kick back and you're like, this is a weird and awesome job.
It's so funny, you know. Well, I'll kick it off because when Michael talks about it, and he talks about where he goes, you know, you see number 10 Downing Street, that's not the set. That's number 10 Downing Street. When you see the Queen's house, and he talks about, you know, he's driving Lambo? I think he's driving a Lambo down. That scene where he shows up, that's the Queen's driveway. You know, like he's driving around, he's like literally going 100 and some odd miles an hour in the Queen's yard. And you know, there's very few people who can pull off stuff like that. You know, and get to do it because, you know, he's Michael Bay and it's Lorenzo and it's Transformers production. So.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You know, what's so fun working on the movie is you have one story every week. I think on this movie, the moment that I just had to laugh at myself and every one of us involved is we had somehow gotten them to close off one of the most famous thoroughfares right near Buckingham Palace. And in the movie, there's that scene where there's a giant chase and then a car flips up and smashes into a building blocking the exit. Well, we hit that building. I mean, that building's hundreds of years old, and I just kept thinking, they actually let us just smash other stuff into this priceless, you know, like, what's wrong with them? You know, and so you just kind of have to laugh, or, you know, you know, one of the ones I really do remember, though, because it was a physical experience, was on Transformers 2, in the really big action sequence, suddenly 6 F-15s came in over us, and the vibration and sound, they came in very low, and literally half the people just fell to the ground because of the physicality of the sound, and it was just like a menace. And you know, you don't get to do those things too often in life.
Yeah. Well, aside from perhaps hallucinations brought on by heat stroke or whatever, any other like interesting behind-the-scenes stories that leaps out at you?
Well, I always tell people this one, and it's that if you're ever Mark Wahlberg, unfortunately he's not here yet, so I can tell you this. He's like he's a very fatherly figure, so every time I would bring my friends to set, or my guy friends, he did not like that. friends. Even though there were just like emphasis on the friend part, they were just guy friends. But I remember one time.
That's because he knew himself.
Maybe. No, he stared down one of my best friends, and then my best friend was scared to come to set again.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's what dads do.
Exactly. I have two now.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what dads do.
Well, you know, from the production standpoint, Lorenzo, you mentioned the writer's room earlier. Can you kind of give us more of an idea of what that looks like and how you feel like that invigorated these stories? This film with like a new set of stories, a new fresh energy, and so on.
Well, I think what's interesting about my experience is my expectation going in of what we were going to do was not met at all. But the result was really kind of extraordinary for myself and I think for all of us, because you suddenly start paying attention. This is a 6 billion year old mythology. And you realize that there are several points that have touchstones, and then you realize how much is out there that doesn't have explanation, you know? And so then your imagination can go pretty much wild and say, well, what about this happened? And, you know, and in a sense, that's one of the reasons why we came across the King Arthur and World War II and things like that, because we started imagining things that we weren't trying to put in a screenplay, we were trying to build a story.
Yeah.
So it's a very different exercise, and I think in the future, if I ever get involved in a writer's room again, I think it's going to be its major focus. It's just building out so much stuff that it gives you things, one, that we would never have thought of. It really broke our thinking. I think one of the hard part about making sequels, and I know there's some very good ones and some not so good ones, is that you sort of get trapped in your mindset of this is what was successful. So you want to replicate that, but if you replicate it, then it feels boring, and then, you know, so you do get hemmed in by your thinking.
Yeah.
And the writer's room, because they weren't thinking about that at all, they led us away from that thinking. So when we imagine the future for Transformers, it's so large, and you know, we could do a World War II movie, we could do a time travel movie, we could, you know, we talked about a lot of different things, and to me, going back to Bumblebee for a second, is one of the reasons why we wanted to do Bumblebee is because we hadn't given the audience the experience of really just sitting with one Transformer for a long period of time. That was our goal for that movie. In the next movie, we were going to have a new goal. And that really changed our thinking looking ahead.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything you want to add to that?
You know what I love, and I think I hear from people when you get off a plane all over the world, that idea that, and it really goes back to the very beginning when we sat with Michael back in 2006. And we sat in a room and we started to talk about what was possible. And I knew Michael was the right person when he said, I want to make this really real. And our goal was, anywhere around the world, if you drove in any city of the world or looked in any parking lot of any supermarket or wherever you were, you could look out and say, so where are the Autobots and where are the Decepticons? You know, how do you make that real robots in disguise idea come to life? How do you really enthrall people in the mystery of why the Transformers have been part of our history for so long? Why are we inextricably linked humans and Transformers? And there's real reasons in the mythology. If you go back in the comics and you go back in the many different iterations of the storytelling, you can find those clues. And by the way, a lot of debates about different legends within that mythology, the quintessence, you know, who were they and how they exist, and were they humanoids and weren't they? And so we can get into all those kinds of conversations, and I love to geek out about stuff like that. And I think that's what Lorenzo's talking about, is how do you take 30 plus years of comic books and 30 plus years of animation and now 10 years of the movies and continue to have fun with that in a way that if you had your quintessential fan in the room with you, they'd say, yeah, you've really captured another element of More Than Meets the Sky, More Than Meets the Eye, Robots in the Skies, in a fun, inventive way. Yeah, I think that's really fun.
Well, you know, I mentioned earlier, you know, I'm a big Transformers fan. I grew up with them, and even I can't I can't sit down with that quintessential fan, most of you guys, and answer all the trivia stuff. It's daunting. And so I was curious, as like an actor that's now in this world, do you find yourself engaging in conversations with fans and then asking about like this theory or that little plot point or whatever, and you saying like, I'm gonna need to like get back to you on that. Do you ever have those moments?
That's a very specific scenario. I think it's mostly people asking about behind the scenes or what's my favorite Transformer, but I remember like we were just talking about what the next movie is going to be about.
Yeah.
Are they doing another movie? Am I allowed to ask that?
The answer is yes. I'm not sure what it is.
Or like what Bumblebee's going to be about.
Oh, yeah.
I'm excited for that one.
I like that you're going for the spoilers right now. I'm trying to play nice, but she's just going for it.
Exactly.
But yeah, and it is such like this rich Bible, like, you know, rich mythology and of a deep roster of characters to pull from. But I mean, from the acting standpoint, when you are on a set like this, do you find, what is the most challenging component for you? Is it the physicality? Is it the playing off of the things that are not always physically in front of you? You said, you know, you get to a point sometimes where you see them anyhow. But what is the most challenging component for you?
Well, I'm not as built as Mark Wahlberg, so the running part was a little challenging, trying to keep up with him during the explosion scenes. If I was like a foot or two behind, then I ran the risk of like getting blown up. And then the imagining part actually wasn't so difficult. I think maybe because, you know, like less than 5 years ago I was still, you know, pretending the floor was lava. But, so it's not that.
It's still fun to do, right?
It's so fun.
Yeah, it's so fun.
Still do it. But, yeah, so it's a world where you do have to embrace imagination and the joys of childhood and having a connection with something that's not really there, like an imaginary friend.
Yeah. What about you? Obviously, we're at HASCON. You're now part of this toy universe as well, which has got to be wild. Are you like seeing these things come your way? You're like, oh yeah, that was in that movie that I was in, and like that exists, like anything like that?
Squeaks, I gotta tell you, I was there from the day that he was a sketch on a piece of paper. And Michael, they asked me, so what's your favorite color? I told him blue. And but the teal blue, kind of like the turquoise, you know, the nice blue. He goes, okay, great. And then he was like, should we build him? And I said, yeah. So technically I made him, you know. No, but then I saw him become a toy. And but the funny thing is, his toy can transform, but he can't actually. So that's, I mean, you guys get the better version, but yeah.
Or can he?
Yeah.
Well, now he's a superstar, and he's like too big for me.
Well, you had another superstar and a legend, an outright legend involved in the last night. Anthony Hopkins, Sir Anthony Hopkins was part of this movie. Mind-blowing. Each of you talk a little bit about sort of your Anthony Hopkins stories or moments or just even reaction when he joined this film.
I think I've had the luck to work twice, and I saw the same thing happen on both movies, which is we're all in awe of him. We're all, you know, he is the actor's actor. And also just as a person, he's a very stately guy and he's a very elegant man. And when he walks on set, everything kind of stops for a second, particularly the first time. And the first time a scene is played out that he's in, I've seen very frequently the actors forget their lines. Because they're watching him and then they forgot that they're supposed to now respond, you know? So, you know, he has that he carries awe for us. And so it's a little like one of the gods of Olympus came down to join us.
Yeah.
And he's so nice too. And you know, the humor that you see in the movie is just like that. In real life, most of it was improv. He's so funny. And I didn't expect that. I expected him to be more like a sir, you know? But he is a sir. He's the best sir out there.
He's the sir, yeah.
He's sir.
So I love the scenes that you guys were able to pull off in that living room with Laura criticizing Mark, and he's right there, and then you had Cogman, you know, helping Mark, and I mean, he was just right in there with all the banter.
Even though Isabela wasn't in that scene, it's one of my favorite.
I didn't get to go to London. I went to 113-degree Arizona and Detroit. It's pretty exotic.
Well, guys, you probably noticed we have another chair on stage, and I think it's time we fill it. You guys ready for me to bring out this other jelly? Our next panelist. You know him as character Mark from Transformers: The Last Night. Give it up for Mr. Mark Wahlberg. If you could be any Transformer, what would it be?
Well, it depends now. You know what? It's always Optimus. I mean, Optimus. Right? Well, I'll fight you for it.
Okay, yeah, that's nice to hear.
Well, I mean, Mark, with The Last Night, obviously, this film still has, like, wall-to-wall action. It is jam-packed with action. But that's sort of like your signature move. You've done a lot of action films, so is this just like another day at work, or was this particularly challenging for you?
No, you know what? You're always going to be faced with new and interesting challenge when making a movie like this. Michael always kind of wants to outdo himself, make the action bigger, better, and he wants the audience to feel like it's actually you in there. So anytime I see a harness in my trailer, I know I'm in for an interesting day. Yeah. Was there any sequence in particular that leaps out at you as like, well, that was fun, or that was hell? Well, I'm never too fond of getting beat up all day, but I think the sequence that was the most difficult was the giant chase with all the drones, and then kind of hanging and getting spun around with the drone and those sort of things. Yeah. But it was fun working with this one. She kept everybody's energy up.
Did I?
You did. You did. You were very enthusiastic.
It was the aqua.
The aqua hydrant.
The aqua hydrant. The promo.
Well, and I want to get your input, all of you guys. But you know, as your second time out in the Transformers franchise, what do you think sets The Last Night apart from the other Transformers films?
Well, you know, it's interesting because it really kind of wanted to explore the mythology, you know, and you know, adding, you know, very exciting new cast members, Isabela, Anthony, Gerard. It really, you know, it was interesting, and Laura, you know, kind of putting, you know, me with the fish out of water story, being, you know, thrust into this world with all these kind of uptight English people. It made for a lot of great humor. But I think the most interesting thing was the mythology, and then introducing all the characters, and you get to understand you know, the origin story of how the Transformers came here.
Yeah, we touched on this a little bit earlier, but anyone else care to add on to that?
Yeah, no, I think Mark's right. It is the mythology that we were hoping to get in deeper, and it was inspired by our experience in the writer's room, and I think that's something we're going to continue to explore, because that is really fun and it's fresh.
Yeah. These are films that really the whole family can get into and can enjoy. How much of that is an appeal for each of you when you kind of dive into this world? Mark, you want to start with that?
Can you repeat the question? I was admiring her long hair. She cut all her hair off. Trying to have a conversation.
Oh no, just like that. These are films that pretty much everyone in the family can enjoy. How much of that is an appeal for you as an actor, as a father?
Well, I can tell you, there's pros and cons to it because I had always enjoyed kind of being anonymity when I go to my kid's school, and now I can't go anywhere with kids. I'm sitting at football practice, all of a sudden this 2-year-old kid comes up to me and is like, "Don't transform until it gets dark." Sitting on my lounge chair, so kids recognize me more than anything now, and it's a cool thing. It's annoying to my kids because they liked when Dad could just be Dad and normal when I went to school functions. But it's cool because I end up having some very interesting conversations with small people. Yeah.
Does anyone else have a thought about just sort of the family component of these films?
You know, we're so grateful to fans and families, and obviously why we wanted to put on our first HASCON is really to give back and give people an opportunity to engage with our brands, and Transformers is a brand that doesn't matter where you go all around the world. I still remember one of the first times we went out to China when we were first getting ready to do the first Transformers film, and you get off the plane there and a bunch of 35-year-old guys will surround you to get all the tidbits about the movie because they grew up on Transformers television series in China. And at that time, we had never brought a movie to China before, and that was our first. You know, so it's just so heartening to me to see how all around the world people love the characters and the story, and we want to give to fans and families, you know, different ways to enjoy the brands. For little kids, rescue bots are probably more appropriate, and then for in the main line, some of the robots in the sky stuff. But obviously, everybody loves the movies that these guys all put together, and that's what's so heartening to see just how many people come out to watch these guys in the movie.
What keeps you coming back to these films?
You know, it was interesting for me the first time around. I would work with Michael Bay on a movie called Pain and Gain, and we had a blast, and I really enjoyed the way he makes films. And, you know, it kind of allows me to make the character my own. And, you know, that was a little film, you know, and this was, these are big. But you know what? I learned so much from working with him and getting an opportunity to do something different. And obviously, you know, reaching an audience all over the world.
Do you have any thoughts about working with Anthony Hopkins? And we all kind of shared like anecdotes of working with this legend, living legend and icon.
He's just such a sweet, approachable guy. You know, he was really, you talk about, she had a lot of enthusiasm. I promise you he had more. He was more excited. He always had this giant grin on his face. It was really a pleasure to see, and to see somebody his age be as sharp and as prepared as he was. It was very impressive all around. But the nicest thing about him was just how sweet and down to earth.
Yeah. For you guys, is that like the sign of like a good fit for this universe when you have someone show up and is, you know, not like taking the job seriously, but not taking, you know, not being too serious about the world, because you have to have fun with it, you have to love it, you have to be enthusiastic about it. Is that a sign of a good fit?
For sure, you know, Michael Light is a funny guy, and he likes comedy. We all feed on him. The truth is, he's a very unique personality, Tony, and he really is something that, right from the get-go, it kind of blew our mind that here he was, and you know, and like Mark said, beyond enthusiastic.
Yeah, we were super excited to hear that he had come on board because, you know, the Ethereum Legends were amazing, and all those stories are incredible, but once he comes on, it really makes it authentic.
Well, you kind of believe it.
He legitimizes it for sure. Yeah. But the other thing is, you know, it's like it's funny because Michael is very specific. Like, he wants comedic elements in the movie, but obviously everything is very real and played very real. So if you have, you know, they'll kind of have those, the comedic actors there for comedy relief, he'll be on them all the time about making sure that everything that they do is real. And then with me, he's always, because he knows that I'm committed, he's always just kind of pushing me to be funnier and go crazier. It's interesting to see how he does that, you know. But it's always definitely we want to play it as real as possible.
Yeah.
Let people come from the craziness of the situation.
And I think I'm getting a time cue over there. I think we're wrapping up. We good? Yep. Yeah. I think we're wrapping up, guys. However, HASCON, you guys have been awesome. I want you guys to make up a lot of noise. Mark, Isabela, Lorenzo, Transformers: The Last Night has come to you guys. If you got a peek of it,
voice actors. They have been with the Transformers family since the beginning. You know him as Megatron. Give it up for Frank Welker! And keep it coming because he is the Prime. He is Optimus Prime. The one, the only, Peter Cullen! She is new to the Transformers family, but already unforgettable. You know her as Isabela in The Last Night. Give it up for Isabela Moner! Might know this guy. He's done a few movies, and he has also been in the last two Transformers films, The Age of Extinction, The Last Night. Give it up for Mr. Mark Wahlberg! Hey guys. Welcome to HASCON, the first HASCON. It's a big deal.
There it is.
Well, I mean, happy anniversary on 10 years of the live-action films and more than 30 years of the Transformers franchise. And just to kick things off, I'm going to go down the road and just ask, like, sort of what sums up Transformers for you, whether it's a scene, a behind-the-scenes moment, an episode of the animated series, you know, a personal anecdote. What sums up Transformers for you? Frank, I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to have you go first.
Well, first of all, it's been a fantastic experience to go through this whole 30 years, as you put it, and it's hard to believe I'm 39. I'm very young when I started, but I think working with Peter, and every time I hear him do that voice, to try to knock him down at some point is just a thrill, because he's so much larger in life. And actually, those two characters playing against each other is for an actor, is a heck of a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I just have to say thank you to both of you for being such an awesome part of, like, my childhood. And Peter, please, man, what's your moment? What sums up Transformers?
Well, you know, it's really the challenge to do that voice that he liked.
Show them that little thing you use to do that voice.
Seriously, it's been a thrill. It's been a great run, and the opportunity to meet the movie franchise people has been extraordinary. You know, Mr. Big here included. Meeting Mark Wahlberg for the first time was one of the greatest thrills I've had. Great respect for this man.
Well, thank you, sir.
And this young lady right here just blew me away in the movie. I thought she was fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm thrilled.
I like coming from you.
I'm starstruck, see?
Lorenzo, what sums up all of this?
It's so hard to sum up a decade, I have to say. You know, for me, I think one of the things that's extraordinary is the insane, rabid fandom of this franchise. And it's the thing that we all, that you all have. And truthfully, we feed off of it. It is incredibly, anytime you start to feel a little down or a little bit like, boy, I've been rejected too many times, what the hell's going on? Somebody comes up to you with a story about what is Transformers to them. And I don't have a single incident but it's been the constant affirmation from the fans for everybody who's done this work on these movies, and that's been a great thing, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah. Isabela, do you want to weigh in? I mean, as like I said, newcomer, but already, like, you know, part of the fandom. What's your thought on that?
Well, he really sums it up perfectly. I mean, the whole fan base kind of hit like a wave. I think my favorite part is seeing, I love seeing the art that they make, the fans. Like they draw these amazing pictures and paintings, and it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
I wish I could draw.
Speaking of art, you got ponified today, right?
I
You're
did.
rocking
I got ponified.
some My Little Pony art there.
Which one is this one? It's something with butterflies. Flutterfly.
Flutterflies.
Yes, Flutterfly. I'm a fan of Rainbow Dash personally.
Yeah?
Yeah.
There's a lot of fans out there. How about you, Mark? You want to weigh in on just like this experience?
It's been incredible. Obviously, I was introduced to the whole Transformers universe by Michael Bay. We made a movie called Pain and Gain, and he said, I would like you to come and do this thing. And to see his passion, his commitment every time to really making movies for the fan base. I mean, he always wants to make it bigger. He always wants to make it better. He insists that the actors are in the moments, especially with the action. He wants to feel like it's authentic. He wants the audience to feel like it's you in those moments. And aside from ruining a lot of my private time, because I can't go anywhere without being recognized by anybody like 5 and up, even younger than that. But it's been an incredible experience, to make a movie that really resonates with audiences all over the world is something that any actor dreams of.
And I will say, I'm going to speak for Michael for a second. He was here tonight. He has a house in Miami. He's in the whole evacuation of it all. He had to get his dogs out of there. They're his beloved dogs, I should say. And he was.
Can we just say that's putting it mildly?
Yeah.
Because I've been on a plane with Michael before. We were flying back from our first trip from Transformers, and he just beat the crap out of me for 15 hours. And so we get on the plane, I'm like, yeah, I'll have a glass of wine. He takes the glass out of my hand. He's like, you cannot hold this during landing or takeoff. And then all of a sudden, these giant mastiffs come on with foam, poop, everything else. And they just start laying all over the plane. I mean, no rules for the dog, but you cannot drink a drink. That's how much he loves his dogs.
Well, I mean, that's great because you guys, you have this pre-existing relationship and now you've been working on the 2 Transformers movies. How has that dynamic sort of evolved between you and Michael? Is there just a lot of shorthand? Is it...
Michael's very afraid of Mark now.
You know what, there's a lot of trust there. Look, I'm there to service his vision. He knows that I really do my homework. I'm prepared. I want to make the character my own, and he gives me the freedom to do that, to improvise, creating backstory, all that stuff. And, he gets a kick out of seeing me go crazy. So, and I see him go crazy quite a bit too. So it's a give and take, and it's one of the better collaborative experiences that I've had. I've worked with a number of directors on a number of occasions, but it's like you're there to service his vision. He has the whole movie in his head, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
And he still allows me to do my thing in the grand scheme of this big picture, which is still it's very fulfilling as an actor.
Yeah. Just not drink wine on the plane. Yeah.
Oh, I took the wine back.
Sorry, Frank, you were saying.
Well, the same thing for the voice folks when we come in, and it's usually my portion is towards the end of the feature. And when you come in, for me, I love that kind of directing because what Michael does, he has suggested lines, but suggested lines. So if you come up with something better, and he laughs or he likes it, it's in. It's not like you're married to the script. He wants you to bring ideas and stuff, and we'd usually do like 3 takes, and I'd try and ad-lib something in there or something, and I'd look, and if he was smiling, I'd think, man, that's got a chance, But that kind of collaborative effort, to me, is really, really enjoyable. And, I remember the first time I came in, he says, what do you think this guy sounds like? Well, yeah, that's fantastic. You're not tied in a box. He lets you go, and he appreciates it. So,
It's actually curious. I'm going to follow up on that because Optimus Prime and Megatron, they're 2 of the most individually well-recognized hero and villain, and then together hero-villain team in pop culture. They are iconic. Why do you think that? Just give me a thumbnail sketch about why these characters have resonated for so long, even into this film franchise, and just made such an impact. Peter, I'm going to start with you.
Well, that's an interesting question, because, you know, I wasn't aware that Megatron and Optimus Prime were, you know, legendary, evil, you know, and good objects of entertainment. I didn't know that. You know, I think it's interesting that it's come this far. Certainly, from Frank and on my point of view, we go back to 1984. So this is when it was a cartoon. Generation 1 for all of us. Woo. Generation 1. That's when I was a lot taller. But now I'm 45 feet tall, so that's pretty good. Anyway, nothing's really changed as far as I was concerned. But then I was only involved until 1986, and we did the movie with Orson Welles, and it was Mr. Big here that informed me that, Peter, have you gone to page 19? And I said, what's on page 19? You're getting whacked. Anyway, so I was by end. But all those years later, you know, here we are with the franchise, the opportunity, you know, to meet these wonderful people, and including Michael Bay. You know, what an experience that was 10 years ago. And it continues to be. So I don't think I answered your question, but I'm sorry.
All right, you answered a question, and that's what matters. So, I mean, Lorenzo, do you want to add to that, just as far as, like, you know, we spoke a little bit earlier about it, but like, why these staple characters when you're looking at a franchise to bring to the big screen, and you're seeing this legacy, what it is about these two characters that just make for such compelling storytelling.
They kind of remind me of Batman and Joker. You know, it's just like one can't exactly exist without the other. And I think, for myself, I think the timbre of both these voices is incredibly important to it, because Peter speaks with such authority, such like, it's what you want in your life. You want some guy who knows all the answers and can tell you the moral way and this is the right way. And Frank, you know, I don't know if this is the biggest compliment, but you just really sound like an evil, bad guy, you know? And I don't know about your personal life. I'm not getting into it, but I really think that. I think it's really important, because archetypes are what we all enjoy in entertainment. You know, we all want to invest in the good guy, and we want the bad guy to be killed. And these two guys just did it spot on perfect. And I think the evolution of it has been to really, frankly, mine the fact that these guys are so talented at what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, meanwhile, Isabela, you mentioned earlier that Squeaks is your favorite Transformer, correct?
Yes.
So what is it about this character, this sort of newcomer to the universe, that makes you really like the character, but also, you know, why you think fans kind of dig Squeaks?
He can't transform. He's a little bit of an underdog, you know, kind of pity him. No, I like him mostly because he's cute, and yeah, I guess I just relate to Squeaks just being kind of like, almost just a little, thinks he's bigger than he actually is. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a squeak in all of us, I think. Squeaks in all of us. So, you know, Mark, you mentioned earlier that it's now gotten difficult for you to go to your kid's school, because now everybody recognizes you from the Transformers movies. You find that kids are relating to you not as the actor Mark Wahlberg, but as the character from Transformers, and start peppering you with Transformers questions?
I was at my son's football practice, and this kid came up and goes, "You know, I know who you are." And he was probably 5. And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, how are you, man?" I'm like trying to get some information out of it. Like, I have a real conversation with him. He's like, "You can't transform until it gets nighttime." And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "You can't transform until it's dark." I said, "Okay, but I want to see it. Don't leave without me." I'm like, "All right, let me just watch my son's practice, and we want to hang out. Want to play play catch. It's now an ongoing thing. Like, this was the first week of practice. We're now into game 2. I'll see him this week, and he'll be like, "Why'd you leave without showing me how you transfer?" And he's dead serious. You know, he'll come up on his bike, and he'll stay there. It's a 2-hour practice. He'll be there for the whole 2 hours. And then his mother, right before it gets dark, just takes him away. It's like, "Wait, no, I gotta wait to see him do his thing." But yeah, that's basically what happens every practice now.
Yeah, this is a dedicated, a tenacious little kid here that's, you're gonna have to...
All I want to do is become this kid's agent because he's so funny and smart, and you know, I'm like, I think somebody's putting him up to it, so I think he's pretending, but he's a hell of an actor. I'm surprised if I become a manager or an agent very soon.
He's got a future in the Transformers franchise, perhaps. Well, you know, and down the line, I'm curious, you know, I asked about like the legacy, but when did you first kind of feel that this thing, especially starting with you guys, when did you first feel that this thing that you were part of something bigger that was going to last? Obviously, it's sort of different down the line because it already had lasted, but when did you first start to notice that this had a legacy?
Well, you know, we really didn't know early on. We were fascinated with the show, and I don't know how many seasons we did originally, but one thing is we never got fan mail. At that time, they didn't give us fan mail, so we didn't know that there was a fan base, and that fan base was growing.
They were trying to keep your salary down.
And I do have a very large head. But the whole experience was just work. You know, we're just actors going into our parts, and we weren't aware of this bubbling. And then, of course, with the internet, the fans showed up. And then all of a sudden we saw the generational interest, you know, like the families and kids, and even when we're at the signings, there's 3 generations right there coming through. So I guess probably when the feature started to happen, that we actually saw that there was this whole underground incredible interest, and just a lot of...
I remember talking to Peter at the beginning of the first feature, and Peter was like, "Really? You're gonna make a movie?" Okay. I'm like, and we're hoping to make more than one. And I think you thought I was insane.
You don't have to answer that.
Well, I didn't know if I was going to be in the movie at all at that point.
Yeah.
I still hadn't auditioned for Michael.
Yep.
Mark. No, but you can direct me if you'd like. Anyway, I didn't know, so when you said they were going to do multiple, I said, well, I hope I'm part of it. That'd be nice. And as Frank said, the internet and I guess was the great thermometer of all time. So you could put your focus on you know, how good you were or how bad you were. You know, you didn't know. And the opportunity for fans to respond to the studio and to Michael was the greatest gift that I have ever received in my career. And it's people like you, you know, from my heart to you. You know, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't be sitting here. And I love you. Thank you. Woo!
Isabela, do you feel like now that you're part of this fandom to the point where people have like really kind of welcomed you into this now?
Yeah, I hope so. No, I'm just honored to be part of something that, you know, I grew up watching. The movies where I was introduced to growing up. And yeah, no, this is really cool. I never thought I could do this at 14. I was 14 at the time. It's crazy. And I couldn't even drive any of the cars yet. It was really upsetting. The Lambo was right in front of me. I couldn't do it. Probably shouldn't own anything that expensive though. Not a good.
I like that. I like hearing the not being able to drive grievances on for the production.
Yes.
Do you think that you know, Mark? Do you think that this Transformers universe? I mean, looking ahead, like what do you think contributes to sort of the future of Transformers? I mean, and why it will continue to go on?
Well, I think the potential is endless. You know, I think you know, there are so many great stories that originate from the Transformer universe, and you know, so many great characters that have been developed. I was talking to some young people earlier, and I'm talking to Lorenzo. I'm so excited about the Bumblebee spinoff, and you know, there are endless opportunities, and you know, realizing how important and how precious this franchise is to the fan base. They will spend endless amounts of time, money, and resources developing those and making sure that they continue to grow the franchise and satisfy audiences for decades to come.
Yeah. Well, in the decade that the live-action franchise has been going on, how do you think filmmaking has changed?
Well, Michael pushes the envelope in every single time, and as this has become more and more successful, we've been given more and more money to push the envelope further and further. So it's had a tremendous effect, I think, on the big scale movies in particular. You know, the idea of how to match up against it, or the demand in creating something that's distinctive from it so that you don't have to compete with it. You know, those are two real effects that have occurred in it. And, you know, there have been a few movies that I think were purposefully trying to ride our coattails, and they came up feeling really false because it wasn't Transformers, and it wasn't Michael and his action, or it wasn't the kind of the grouping of actors that we've been able to attract. I mean, it's one of the things that's extraordinary. When you actually list out the actors who've been part of this, it's some of the great actors of every generation. And that means there's something special going on here, because there's not a lot of other things to do that.
The story seems to have evolved. The mythology has become even more rich. I mean, speak to that a little bit. And sort of the plan, how you guys sort of determined that, okay, we're adding these extra layers, we can go back in time, we can explore Arthurian legend.
I wish we could say we had a really concrete plan. I think it's really about sort of almost, we really respond to the audience. So we see what the audience likes and doesn't like in a movie. We read about it on the internet, we hear it in anecdotal things when we're going and doing press in different places. And one of the reasons why we did Bumblebee was we wanted to give the audience a completely different experience with a Transformer. We wanted you to be able to get really underneath who one Transformer character is. So you'll get to know Bumblebee in a way you've never gotten to know any Transformer. And at the same time, because Michael's action is so singular, we've taken a different approach with the action. So hopefully you will find this a brand new experience, and yet drawing on the things that you really love. And I think the same thing goes in terms of figuring out the next Transformer line movie, I guess. You know, we're looking really hard at how to surprise people and how to bring something to the table that we haven't done before. And so, as you were mentioning, you know, we've debated whether we could do a time travel movie, for instance, or whether we could do a World War II movie. And we're still in the process of trying to nail down what direction we want to take. But, you know, in part we listen to the fans about where they want us to go, and in part we're trying to get excited for ourselves.
Mm-hmm. You know, in the animation world, it would be baby Transformers.
Of course, yeah, that'd be the first.
It's gonna get out of
How about all the the human characters, but as babies, like Mark Wahlberg, baby form, and then lead the movie and just carry it out.
And there would still be Transformers, or just like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Sir Anthony Hopkins would be like an infant as well.
Really old.
He'd be oh, he's so young at heart.
Yes, he is.
He is.
But would the Transformers be the regular size and grown-up Transformers, and then the baby humans?
It's a hard question. I really think it through. How about the fans decide?
I like it. Aside from the Baby Transformers spinoff, Mark, I'm sure they're going to be talking to you about that soon.
I've already signed on.
When you actually, got the plot breakdown for The Last Night, it's like, okay, there's this Arthurian component to it. What was your reaction to that? You're like, it's still a robot in disguise movie, but now this whole other element to it. What were you thinking when you got that?
Yeah, when they started talking about, last living descendants of King Arthur or Merlin the Magician, I was like, so who's the last knight? It's like, the sword's gonna come from where? But again, it was one of those things where you just kind of trust Michael, they spend so much time and effort and energy. And if you think, the most impressive thing about Michael is his level of commitment to making it better, bigger and better every time for the people that made it a success in the first place, and that's the fan base. So you just kind of go on this journey with him and, be prepared to do the unexpected and, just make sure you're committed, one of those things. But I thought, anything that's new and different is always exciting to me, and that was the big appeal.
Well, along with bigger and better, I'm curious, does that mean, more pain, like, bigger stunts? Does that equate to more personal injury or pain that you had to undergo?
Yeah, I'm not getting any younger, that's for sure. The only problem that I had with the entire process was the long hair. And I think he did that to me on purpose.
He's not alone. I think you look awesome in long hair. Don't you guys think so? Come on, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
I think I look like my mother from 1990. Not the worst thing in the world, but, having it blowing out was, was just on me.
One of the interesting things.
I'm happy that I have any hair left. But at the same time, it's like, it was a Michael choice. And then it was like, oh, it needs to be a little more blonde. I'm like, don't start with the hair. Come on. But you know what? When you sign up, you are there really to service his vision. And Michael is one of the few filmmakers that has continued to change the game, and innovate, and create at a level that most people can only imagine. So you just kind of, you're lucky to be a part of it and to experience that sort of thing and learn from him as you're a part of the process.
Yeah, I think one of the things he said is worth talking about, because I think the hardest thing it's been for us, and one of the reasons why we loved the idea of the Arthurian legend, was because it's so hard to have a 6-foot human. I know you're not 6 feet, Mark, but
A lot of guys aren't, but at least I'm comfortable admitting it.
But seriously, it's hard to have a human compete with a 35 or 45 foot entity. And what was cool, I think, in this movie was they legitimately, being the descendant, being the keeper of the flame of true heroism, and the descendant of Merlin, was a great idea, I think, because it in many ways, for the first time, we had humans that in a sense were on a par with the Transformers. They had as much ability to influence the events as the Transformers, and I thought that was a really cool aspect of this movie.
I buy
it. Very cool, very cool. Well, I know we'll have more from the Transformers film franchise on the way, including maybe human Transformer movie. Watch out for that. In the meantime, I'm going to let these guys go. We have reached the end of this portion of the panel, so I want you guys to make a heck of a lot of noise for these folks. Please give it up for